Hey, it's Ted with HDpiano, and here's how to play Deja Vu. So I'll teach you this main part, and then we'll also learn some ideas for how you can expand upon it and make it more dramatic. And we'll go over some of those ideas in this lesson right here, and I'll also teach a whole expansion pack on ideas like that over at hdpiano.com. For now, let's learn this first part, and this is, it sounds like it's a glockenspiel or some sort of bell-like instrument right here at the beginning. It's a very simple part, and this is going to last for the entire song. We just have to be aware of some places where we drop out, and there's also one other chord that comes in halfway through the chorus. So I'll show you that. First, I want you to just alternate these two notes, F sharp and E. And you can use whatever fingers you like here. You might find it easiest to use fingers 2 and 1, or 4 and 3. Really, any combination of fingers is going to be fine. You just need to leave yourself room to get down to these two notes, C sharp and B. So we're going to be moving back and forth between this pair of notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So each pair of notes lasts for a total of 8 counts like that. And our left hand is going to be reinforcing that pulse, that feeling of the count. So against these first two notes, left hand plays D and A. And the distance between these notes is called a fifth for any music theory nerds. Before we move to the next chord, I want you to notice something. I'm using the sustain pedal. And if you're playing on a keyboard, hopefully you have one. If you don't, it's not the end of the world, but the sustain pedal makes a big difference. This is the pedal that goes underneath your keyboard, and you can use it to hold out notes even when your hands aren't down. And in this case, it's allowing the sound of these notes to ring out together, and it makes it sound totally different than it would without it. A lot closer to that glockenspiel sound, that like bell instrument sound, because when you play an instrument like that, the notes ring out whether you want them to or not. They're just going to ring out for a long time. So use a lot of sustain pedal here. The only place you're going to lift up the sustain pedal is when we move to this next chord. So when we go to these other two notes, the C sharp and the B in the right hand, you're going to move down to A and E in the left hand. So right when you move down to these other two notes, you're going to lift up the sustain pedal just for when you put down that new chord, and then immediately you can put it back down. And that's it. Often our students ask about coordination problems. You can get one hand, you can get the other hand, but you can't put them together. And always our suggestion is slow things down as slow as you need to play it perfectly. And sometimes that might be way slower than you would even expect. If you have to play it this slow, in order to make sure that you're doing everything in the right order, that is totally fine. And in fact, you might even need to go slower than that. But the main point with that kind of practice is that you bring it down as slow as you need so that you can do it correctly. And then once you learn the correct motion, it's actually pretty easy to speed it back up. Our brains are kind of like tape recorders that way. Okay, so I mentioned that there's one other chord we need to learn, and this comes in halfway through the chorus. We briefly go to this other chord. Instead of our D on the bottom, we're going to add one more note to this left-hand chord, and that's a B. So in context, here's the top of the chorus. And then right here, we add this other note on bottom. And then go back to our regular pattern. Okay, now, I promised I was going to show you some ideas for how to expand upon this. And I'm really going to get into the theory here and ways that you can improvise and make this sound as big and dramatic as you want to in the expansion pack lesson, and that's at hdpiano.com. But for now, I just want to show you this first basic idea for how you can play a big dramatic left hand against this right hand pattern. What I'm doing is every 2 beats, I'm playing something in my left hand. The first thing I play is a big ol' octave like this. An octave is the distance between 2 notes of the same name. So here's a D, here's another D. And if you can reach them with thumb and pinky, you can play them together. And again, the sustain pedal helps a ton here. I can just kind of strike this with the weight of my arm and then take my hand away and immediately relax if I'm using the sustain pedal. And that can be a lot easier physically than trying to play octaves and hold them out. Because if you do that, you're necessarily going to have some tension remaining in your hand. Hopefully not much. You want to drop your weight into keys in general, drop your weight into the piano, and then immediately relax as much as you can to sustain the note, because you really don't need to keep pushing down at this point. But if you're playing with the sustain pedal, you can actually even take your hand away, and then you can be totally relaxed. So you'll notice this especially, a big classical concert pianist will really throw their arm down into an octave like this, and then immediately their hand goes flying somewhere else. So you can be just like that concert pianist if you use your sustain pedal, throw your hand down on the octave, and then you're going to jump up to this other chord. And this is just like what we were playing before, but I'm adding one note in the middle, and this turns it into a proper D major chord, D, F sharp, A. So the whole left-hand part is... and it's every 2 beats, so against the right hand, it sounds like this. And I'm making exactly the same change with this A chord. So the part that we were playing before, it had A on the bottom, and this is in fact an A major chord. So I'm just playing a big A octave low on the piano, and then jumping up to an A major chord on that second note there. So if you're playing along with the recording or you're accompanying yourself, it can be really fun to have another option when you're playing a repetitive keyboard part like this, a way to make things sound bigger and more dramatic. So I wanted to give you guys just at least one other way to spice things up as you're playing through the song. And you can get a lot out of just these 2 different parts. You have a soft and then a loud. Maybe you throw in the loud version when you get to the chorus, or hold it off until the bridge, something like that. And if you want to get more into some details of ways that we can really expand upon these 2 simple chords in this song, head over to hdpiano.com for the expansion pack. I'm Ted with hdpiano.com. Okay, great job on part 1. If you're on hdpiano.com already, you can click on the next video. If you're not, head on over so you can keep going with this song. If there's another song you want to learn, send us your ideas at requests.hdpiano.com. You can follow us on social media for a heads up about new lessons. And if you're on YouTube, drop us a comment because we love hearing from you. I'm Ted with hdpiano.com. Until next time.